Welcome to the Utah Football Fans Podcast. Please like, subscribe, and share. And as always, go Utes.
All right, I'll chirp in and then agree, disagree, or whatever. Props to Michigan. They deserved a win. They were the better team last night. They imposed their will, the way they play, upon Washington. They're a physical team on both sides of the ball. That's the way they play. I'll say this, though, about Michigan, which I do like, is that, or it seems to me anyway, I mean, I'm no expert, but Michigan does have, it seems to me, does have a culture and a climate of the way they play under Harbaugh. And it's the tough-nosed football. Now, I don't know what their portal and NIL situation was coming up to it, but my understanding anyways is they've created this culture, which is, hard-nosed, strong type of football. And they've been able to impose their will on everybody. I mean, they were undefeated. They got beat last year in the semis. So I appreciate that, and honestly shows, or at least would indicate on one level, that if you're going to be a winning program, is that it can't be mercenary ball, where you just go out into the portal, pick up some bunch of guys in, bring them on in, and all of a sudden you're going to be transformed into a Michigan and win. I don't see that happening. I see Michigan. It just seems to me they've been able to keep this together in this climate that we're living in, at least up to this point. And they played their game, and they beat Washington. But I will say this: the first quarter, and then just obviously into the second quarter, just briefly into the second quarter. I mean, Washington did adapt to the offense that was being shoved down their throat. It was a little too late for the adjustments in some ways. I wondered why they didn't adjust sooner. But the bottom line is they adjusted, and in the middle of the game, the middle section of that game, you can go look at the recap of the game. Look, Washington's defense stopped Michigan plenty of times to give that offense a chance to win the game. And the reality of it is, which surprised me, is that Penix missed some shots. Look, Michigan had a good defense, so it wasn't going to be easy. Their scheme was good, and their front is really good, and they did have some pressure. But what I'm saying is, even with all of that, uncharacteristically, Penix missed a couple of touchdowns, is the way I look at it, which could have changed everything. They actually could have either, on a couple of those occasions, tied the game or taken the lead. And I saw some guy from Michigan, if you're going to win with some class, but this guy wasn't. He was on our, I don't know, calling it a blowout. Okay, the score, yeah, if you want to be a simpleton and say it was a blowout, it really wasn't a blowout.
Now, if you watch the game, it wasn't a blowout.
Washington was right there up until Penix threw the interception. The guy ran at 80 back. They scored. Game over. They got the ball back. They're trying to push it. They got stopped on a fourth, like on their own 30. They scored again. So there's like 14 points at the end of the game. The point is, Washington was right there. And what surprised me is that Penix missed some throws that could have changed everything. But having said all that, Michigan deserved it. They won that game. That's how they played all year. So anyway, that's my starting salvo into all of it.
For me, the story of the game, I'm with you. Michigan was the better team. But the story of the game, and if you watched it, was the offensive line could not protect Penix. Could not. I mean, it was within a second they were in his lap. And so he could never get comfortable to make the throws that we're all used to seeing. And it was a little disappointing. I wanted to see the Penix that we saw versus Texas, but hey, that Michigan defense, that front. But you're right. They got it down to a 1 point. I texted you guys and I said, get this to a 1-score game at halftime. Now, the first play of the second half, he throws an interception. So that was a little disappointing. But they were in it all the way to midway through the fourth quarter. And then the doors came off and it was a much more entertaining game than it started off. Man, when it was 17-3, I think everybody was kind of going, oh, geez, let's not have another blowout. But they made it a good game. It was entertaining. I was just waiting. Please, go score. Tie this thing up. Let's make this thing interesting. I just want to quote, I think Jim Harbaugh actually sums it up perfectly in his post-game presser. If you listen to him with Holly Rowe, he said, and I quote, "It's pretty great. You watch this confetti come down. It's like thousands of confetti. It tells a story. There's a story in every one of these pieces of confetti. Amazing blue confetti. I'm just so proud of our team." I don't think you could say it any better than Harbaugh said it himself.
Put that right next to Aristotle and Plato.
Put it up on the wall.
Dude. He's a weird dude.
Yeah, he's a weird dude, but man, he can coach football. Holy cow. I mean, hey, congratulations, Michigan. They were the better team, 15-0. It's incredible. It was a crazy season. Say what you want about all that, but as far as last night's game goes, they were the better team. They ran the ball effectively. They did what they were going to do. I was entertained until the last 5 minutes.
Mainly up front, though. Mainly up front.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they were the better team. My biggest disappointment, I can handle that Michigan was the better team because they were. It's very disappointing to me that Washington didn't play their best game. I will say, I think a lot of that is because of the way Michigan plays. I'm giving Michigan full credit because people in the comments are going to come at me and say it's because Michigan's so good on defense, which they absolutely are. But Washington, the mistakes, like Penix was he was so off. And I do think a lot of that was the pressure he was getting. He did not look comfortable like we've watched him play before. Usually that guy is as cool as a cucumber. Like even when the pressure's coming at him, he doesn't get frazzled. And last night he got frazzled and his throws were off and the decisions. And then of course, the end of the game, his ribs were just snapped in half. You could just tell he was in so much pain, but it was disappointing to lose having him not played very well. I don't feel like he played very well. And so
he had a rough game.
And so to kind of leave that hanging out there, I think is unfortunate. But again, huge credit to Michigan because their defense was just stifling. They just stifled them. And with Johnson being banged up, I mean, he just wasn't. I mean, he went in the first play and then was basically out in the medical tent right after that. So he wasn't.
He gave it a shot, but he wasn't.
He wasn't himself.
You could tell he was. I don't know.
He wasn't himself. And
70%, no way. I give him credit, but that was a blow to the team.
Right, and so you lose the running game, and then when your star quarterback, I mean, some of the throws, like it was just so uncharacteristic of Penix. Like he was overthrowing guys, he was missing guys, and that's not what you're used to seeing from him, especially their last few games. So that was disappointing. Washington's O-line just got destroyed. They could not do anything. They just kept getting completely like mowed over. They couldn't do anything. So it was a good game. I think the score didn't reflect really what the game was. It kind of blew wide open at the end. It was so much closer. I mean, Washington had every chance to win it towards the end, and they couldn't do it. But
if they had scored a touchdown, like it's tied going into the fourth quarter, that would have it's a totally different ball game. I could not believe a couple of the misses. I mean, he had Odunze open for a touchdown, just missed him. And then Texas Mike, you're right. The drops, the untimely drops. There were a couple where, okay, they weren't the easiest catches, but man, you got to make them. You got to help your guy out. And they just could not get over that hump to score. And then the wheels fell off. So,
yeah, I mean, they were pressing and they couldn't make, I don't think Michigan made a turnover. Is that correct?
No, Michigan played a clean game.
Clean as far as that goes, and they're a good team, so you can't. But all I'm saying is if Washington, which we've seen all year, is if they would have made a play or two that goes for touchdowns, which they were there, Penix missed them, a couple drops here or there. It's a whole different game. But if, man, I'm not making any excuses. That's the way it is because Michigan's good. They deserved the win, and they did it. Yeah. They imposed their will. They won.
If, and I am going to bring this up, if the refs don't call a phantom holding call, the only holding call that they called the entire game, basically, they hadn't called one the entire game, and then you call that one is the one you call. I mean, come on.
I'm with you.
What do you want me to say?
It changed the game. That's what I want you to say.
Come on, people. That wasn't the reason they lost the game.
I'm not, Gary. Don't put words in my mouth. I didn't say that's the reason they lost the game.
Can.
Okay. That play.
One play, it was garbage.
That play was a 40-yard switch. Okay. Yeah. It was a first down at midfield. Instead, it is a 2nd and 20. They punt. Michigan goes down and scores. That was the nail in the coffin. That is the one thing about that game that is infuriating to me. I just wanted the refs to not have an impact, and they absolutely did. Now, again, Michigan won the game. Michigan was the better team. But Bryn, I'm with you. That play, when it happened, I just couldn't believe that. Of all the stuff I saw that night, that's the holding that they called. It infuriated me.
More for me, it was the fact they had not thrown a flag for holding like the whole game, the entire game. And then that's the one you throw it on. That's where that's like why it sticks out to me so much, because finally he completes a long bomb to Odunze. Who knows what would have happened from there? And the holding call was nothing. It was barely anything. And there was a lot of other stuff that had gone on in the game. I'm not saying they would have won, Gary. Don't put that in my mouth. I didn't say that.
Kind of sounded like it, you two.
No, that's not what I said. Hear it. I'm just saying that was bull crap. Bull crap. It was. It just was. But here's what I also will say. Watching Michigan last night gave me so much hope as a Utah fan, because it's hard-nosed defense. It's just shove it down their throat. Not an explosive offense by any means. I mean, McCarthy, I actually didn't even look up his numbers. Like, what were his numbers? Not really anything.
They were nothing.
20 yards or something.
He was he was 10 of 18 for 140. I mean, come on.
Right. But it's a very similar Utah style type that Michigan was playing. And so that gives me a lot of hope for the future.
That's wonderful.
The one thing I'll say about McCarthy, I don't think he's good.
So ridiculous.
I am not a McCarthy fan. At all. I've seen people say that I don't think he's a top 25 draft pick. Honestly, I don't. I think he's a game manager. I think he's been in that system for so long. I think he fits really well. He made, just like in the Alabama game, he made a couple of plays at such key moments of the game that it changed everything. He was clutch when he needed to be. But as far as a quarterback goes, come on. 10 of 18. I've seen that all year.
Okay, I'm going to agree, man. J.J. McCarthy, that dude is not going to be playing in the NFL. I'm just telling you. He's not even going to be a good backup. Look, Michigan, if there's any Michigan people out there, or this gets clipped out or whatever, come on, you got to acknowledge that. The guy is not good enough to do damage in the NFL. He made some plays, whatever. But even in a good game, even with Penix and a terrible game that he had, you could tell he was better than McCarthy. And the way McCarthy plays, he hands the ball off and the guys run for 260 yards. He had to make a couple of plays. Well, if you're playing college ball at Michigan, you should be able to make a couple of those plays. I'm just saying the dude is not an NFL QB.
But that's what I'm saying is you can win a national championship without the star QB, without the explosive offense. It's defense wins championships. We've talked about this numerous times about which is more important. They're both important, obviously. But what I'm saying is, as a Utah team who doesn't have explosive offenses ever, it made me feel
No,
really
that's not
hopeful.
true.
Yes, it is true. We
No,
don't
not-
have explosive offense. We don't.
Yes, we
Gary.
did. We averaged 38 points a game last year. That's
No.
pretty dang explosive.
What that showed
Rin?
me is offensive line and defensive line are the two most important
Trenches.
position groups on the field. Michigan had the better defensive line and the better offensive line, and they were the better team, right? If you have a great offensive line, that can cover up for a average quarterback, and it did. And they went 15-0. They won the national championship with a average quarterback and the best offensive line in college football. There you go. That's all you need to do. Go get the best offensive and defensive line in college football, and you'll be in the playoff every year. There you go.
So here's a
Easy
question.
enough.
Oh, did you see the poll I put out on Twitter? Did you guys poll?
Grading the game? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me throw that out. I don't know what you guys did, but so it's a championship game. You know, who's the champion of college football? So there's just that excitement, big game, all the plays matter. Okay. But if you were to be objective as a football game, how entertaining was it? Just as the game itself, how would you grade it? That's the poll I put out, A, B, C, or D. And what I found interesting, it's a pretty decent amount of people voted on it. 3% gave it an A.
Michigan
Entertainment value. Gave it only 3%. 44% gave a B grade. And 46% gave a C grade. And 7% gave a D. So more people gave it a D than people gave it an A. Where do you fit in all of that?
I can see that.
I gave it a B.
I gave
was
it a B, but I'm more like on a B minus side of it. As far as just the entertainment value of it. I mean, I've seen more exciting games than that game. It was just there's so much writing on it.
Well, yeah, for me, it was B leaning actually towards C for the reasons I said before, where I didn't feel like Washington played their best game. If we had seen the explosive Washington, the Penix, the receivers that we had seen in the Pac-12 championship and in the Sugar Bowl, it would have been an A. I still think Michigan probably would have pulled it off and won, but I wanted to see that. So I'm a B leaning towards C. That's where I was.
I think a lot of people are that way. Okay, let me ask this. So in the two semi games, how would you have graded Texas Washington?
I would have given both. This is the
both.
second year in a row where the playoff semifinals were way better than the final. Last year,
That's how it usually is.
This year, I would have given both those games an A. Honestly, A.
Yeah.
I was so entertained. Down
Even
to
with the mistakes, and I mean, they weren't.
It added to it. I mean, it wasn't my team, so
Rose
I
Bowl
don't
wasn't
care
very
about the
clean.
mistakes. It was exciting. You know, every play, you're kind of going, what's going to happen? Both those games came down to the literal last play of the game. Okay, this game yesterday, it was kind of boring. I obviously I watched every play, but you're kind of waiting for something to happen. I would give it a C, even a C minus. Honestly, it was fine. It was an average game. The semifinal games, those were great. Those were outstanding football games, in my opinion.
I still think it was a good game. I don't think it was anything like last year, which was garbage.
No, last year was trash.
No, it was
I
way
think
better
the
than last
committee
year.
got everything right, to be honest with you.
Yes.
I think the best four teams were there. And overall, they were good games, good football games. Some are really just outstanding and exciting. Some are just grinders, which this one turned out to be. So be it. But the parity was really good I think it was really good for the game. That's how I see that, that. But
I was worried the first quarter, man. I'm sitting there going, please, for a couple of reasons. I wanted an entertaining game. Please don't get blown out like TCU did. I wanted an entertaining game, something to watch. But Washington, you can't do that to the Pac-12 in the last game. You can't get blown out and embarrassed. And they didn't. They held their own. They had opportunities. So it was a fine enough game. But for a championship, when all of college football comes down to this one game, this is it. It was okay.
I feel like that's how it always is. When was the last time the national championship was exciting versus the playoff games? I mean,
There's been some.
Yeah, I mean, for sure the last 2 years.
Alabama had a good one. It was
Yeah.
Alabama, Georgia that was in overtime. Is that the game I'm thinking of?
Good ones. I mean, I don't have
some good ones. It's just last year was so bad. It was so bad.
And see, last year's 2 playoff games were amazing. So it was, but yeah, I was just glad. I was getting nervous at that first quarter that it was going to be a blowout, and that would have been really depressing. But no, it wasn't. It was a decent game. It wasn't the most exciting game of the season, which is kind of what your expectation is. But it didn't meet that expectation. So, but it was good. I mean, it was no SEC teams. It was kind of new faces that we haven't seen in there. So that makes it exciting as well.
That was great.
Here's the question. Is Harbaugh leaving or is he back next year?
He's gone.
He's gone.
I think so too. I think he's NFL.
I think he wants back in the NFL. Yeah.
Silver we'll come back, baby. That just reminded me of something, though. You have to admit, after all that the NCAA did to Harbaugh and Michigan this year, the hamburger scandal, they gave the guy hamburgers or something.
During then COVID.
Stealing signs, garbage, cut him out for 3 games. I mean, come on. He just gave the biggest middle finger to the NCAA. Yeah. You got to love that, man. I mean, I don't care what you think about Harbaugh, but that's got to feel pretty sweet. But anyway, going back to what you were saying, I think he's gone. He's going to the NFL.
Yeah, I think that's part of why he's going to leave, because he's just going to say, yeah, exactly, Mark.
So what do you think?
Mark, you just to the Raiders.
I don't know, man. Pierce has done a great job
the Raiders.
There. I would love him on the Raiders. Oh. Yeah.
I'll take anybody on the Raiders, to be honest, at this point. Pierce has done a pretty good job, though.
He's done a good job.
They need to just hire him.
He has to go. Offer Harbaugh the job. If he does not want it, or he's delaying or whatever, then just cut the cord and have AT be the coach. Get it done. Let's get our guy. He's great. He's a great coach. The players love him. The Raiders are on the way up, everybody. I'm just telling you, AP would be sweet.
There's too many other teams that need a coach that Harbaugh's going to go somewhere else. I mean, there's too many other teams right now that have fired their coaches and whatnot. What about the Patriots? Are they going to get rid of Belichick and put Harbaugh in there?
Billy's going to be gone.
Billy's gone. They just fired, or there's so many jobs.
Who wants to go to the Commanders, honestly?
The Titans just fired.
Hey, who wants to go to the Washington Commanders? Does Jim Harbaugh want to go there?
No. Jim Harbaugh is going to the Raiders.
Oh, wait, Belichick will end up there.
The Chargers.
He'll end up probably at the Chargers or something like that.
Yeah. It's Raiders or Chargers for him.